Welcome back to Century of Economy 2017. I'm afraid I have bad news for you. This is the last report. When last we left off, the English had just killed the Kraken and captured or sunk the last pirate warships. The French were fighting the Americans and had attacked the English. The Cursed and Spanish were preparing for the resource changes, and the Americans were putting the hurt on the French. The Spanish upgraded their lumber island with a trading port, allowing them to hire privateer factions, such as the Jade Rebellion and Barbary Corsairs. The Americans captured the Soleil Royal and Glory, seeming to signal the end for the French. Meanwhile, the Neptune was captured by the Philadelphia. Here she repairs alongside the Providence. In an act of good faith to their new ally, the Cursed used their L-moving crew to move the Fool's hopes directly sideways, wrecking her on a reef and denying the English the chance to use her. The Egan fires on the now repaired El Ballista, taking out her front mast. The Cursed have a sudden reversal of their opinion of the pirates, and attack the Grand Barnacle, eventually rendering her derelict. With an extra action, the Cursed used their L-mover again to send the Maurice Fishhook away from the English home island. In what could be their last launch of the game, the French put forth La Possession, with a captain and a helmsman, and Mont Blanc, the flotilla. The resources were set to change, and when they did, gold appeared. Massive amounts of gold have appeared on the shipwrecks, gold islands, and portal islands. However, much of this gold is unique treasure. Here you can see the fort of Aguanvari Gakali, built on a reef next to a gold island the Cursed share with the Americans. A long shot looking north, with the Spanish in the foreground. They have recently launched the San Cristobal, and crewed her with extra action captain Victor de Alva, and a world-hating crew from El Cazador set. A water-level shot shows the bow of the Hoya del Sol on the right, with the blurry forest of masts in the background. In addition to new resource rules, the rolling fog has also returned. The English North. The Bao Huan has captured the Deliverance, and is sailing around the wreck of the Fool's Hope. English runners continue to gather valuable resources, spices and finished goods, and seek out new locations to get more. The Providence explored the American Gold Island, and found Pandora's Box. This allowed each faction to put a UT not in play onto the Providence. Meanwhile, Potions and Brews is a proxy for a UT from El Cazador set, the Fountain of Dreams, which essentially is an inverse of Pandora's Box, allowing each faction to place a UT on one of their ships. The last pirates, the Pride docks home to put out her fire masts, which was only possible by the pirate selection of a UT from the Fountain of Dreams, an abandoned oarsman. The English also had UT adventures. After exploring a gold island, they found Lost, and used it to place 3 terrain, and chose to reintroduce the Storm terrain. They placed 1 storm next to the American home island, and placed a reef on the only other docking point for Thompson's Island. Finally, they placed a storm next to the Spanish home island. This placement of terrain earned the English declarations of war from both factions, with the Spanish striking first, demolishing their trading port on the edges of English territory. Before they dealt with the English, the Americans had to mop up what was left of the French. Here the Stephens and Charlemagne tag-team the Possession, and rend her derelict with a firemast, dooming the ship. The San Cristobal is stuck in a sargasso, but is moving northward toward the English, with La Resolution backing her up. The Spanish already have strong forces around the Middle Ocean, where the trading port was destroyed, and now reinforcements are on their way. The Constitution completely ignores the French, and sets her eyes upon the hated English. The Spanish add a host of small, fast ships to the squad heading north, almost all of the Jade Turtle ships in our collection, and the Chancellor El Paso. Not only did the Spanish hire the Jade Rebels, but they also hired all of the Viking ships in our collection, the Hrunting, Asgard, and Hrothgar. Sailing around the portal, El Cristo del Obispo wastes the Bolingbroke and Whitecliff, with help from the smaller Spanish ships. the English will be hard-pressed to essentially fight a war on two fronts. Already the strain of the struggle has cost the English, as the dreadnought sinks. The background, however, shows the story, as the Cruzado is engaged against the Titan, and the Cristal is derelict next to the dreadnought. However, La Fuega, custom Spanish battleship, is backing up the mighty Spanish flagship. Meanwhile, the Bombardier is revealed to be the cause of destruction for the Cristal, who lies burning. However, on the starboard side of the Bombardier looms El Neptuno. Realizing their need for more ships, the English dip into their coffers and launch two ships, HMS Apollo and HMS Endeavour. The Endeavour loads Carbon Charlie to make her even more deadly, while the Fire and Steel Apollo has that ability built in. The English weren't done, however, and also launched from Fort Royal, right on the front line. And what exactly did they launch? They launched a broadsides attack squadron. The Black Knight, accustomed with broadsides attack and ignores the first hit, with a captain, helmsman, shipwright, and oarsman. HMS Swallow, with Lord Nelson, custom crew from Cadet Captain Mike's set, a helmsman, shipwright, and oarsman. HMS Lord Algernon, with Captain Percival Blake, a helmsman and a shipwright. HMS Ajax, with a captain and helmsman. HMS Botany Bay, with a captain and helmsman. HMS Bertwalda, also with a captain and helmsman. HMS Ark Royal, with a captain, helmsman, and oarsman. The Celtic Fury launches herself into the teeth of the Americans, and aims right at the Constitution. With help, she manages to derelict the mighty American ship. Realizing the seriousness of the English threat, the Stevens attempts to go around the side of the French home island. In the background, La Voz de Dios is visible, having arrived from the portal. Disaster for the Americans. On their turn, the English captured the Constitution. Even though she's burning and doesn't have long to float, docking her at a fort will put out her fire masts, and Fort Brompton is within easy sailing distance. The battle degenerates into a close-quarters pell-mell, with masts falling all around. The Titan was able to get back to Fort Royal and put out her fire masts. Meanwhile, the Bombardier gave the El Neptuno 2 fire masts of her own. The San Cristobal and El Gariante have slipped around to the far side of Fort Royal, and dismasted the Bertwalda while she was docked. The English responded to this by firing the guns of the fort and Level 4 colony, and aimed all cannons on the Cruzado. This bombardment of landfire took her down to 1 mast standing. You can make out the hired Vikings on their way in their colorful longships in the background, and note that the El Gariante has taken damage. The English strike back. Turning their rage upon the close-at-hand Spanish, the English launch a devastating counterattack. El Gariante has been reduced to 1 mast, and the Cruzado is derelict in front of the Black Knight. Meanwhile, the Titan has been towed out of harm's way with a spot of chain towing. In the background, you can see what's left of the San Cristobal against the Swallow, Lord Algernon, and Botany Bay. The only healthy Spanish ship in the area is La Fuega, who is not only in an awkward position, but is also down a mast already. The rolling fog causes headaches and curses to fly as it engulfs most of the cursed fleet. The storm takes its toll on the Americans. Here engulfing and destroying the ship RSS LeBeau was on, and also taking a mast off of the captured Lion. The English claim victory in their first battle. The Gariante and Fuega alone could not stem the English tide, so they fled into nearby fog. But this only opened the door for the English. Surging through the gap, the English capture El Cruzado. The Titan repairs, and in the background the San Cristobal has been dismasted, and is likely to be captured as well. The Maui's fishhook comes out to grab the Cruzado, and takes her right back home via Commander Temple. Then, using an extra action from Lord Micron, the fishhook sails out again, and is able to grab the San Cristobal as well. The captured Spanish prizes sit next to each other at the English home island, and will begin repairing soon. The Spanish are coming in force, however, and they re-explore the island that the English built a trading port on, and find finished goods. Formerly a resource only available to the English, the Spanish have discovered a valuable resource. Back at the portal, the Tepet dismasts the Villalobos, while two Spanish sloops come around the island on the left, towing the captured London. The Neptuno is putting up a fight against the Bombardier, but is slowly losing as more and more fire appears. The Voz de Dios looks to go through the portal to reinforce the Viking longships, which are visible in the background. You can also see the resource dice on top of the portal. A bevy of smaller Spanish ships arrive at Fort Royal and cause massive damage. With accurate cannons and ramming, the Ark Royal and Black Knight are brought to their knees. The Lord Algernon and Swallow dismasted a longship, and now duel El Rosal and the damaged La Fuega, with the Spanish getting the better end of that duel as the Algernon falls to one mast. The Gariante comes out of the fog and rams into the Bretwalda, taking out her last mast. English reinforcements arrive, as the Bao rams headlong into the Gariante, and the Grand Temple docks at the far side of Fort Royal. The Ajax has been dismasted behind the Black Knight, who has repaired two of her masts with her shipwright. Meanwhile, the Lord Walpole has sailed straight into the teeth of the Spanish on the lower right, and is taking a beating for it. The Spanish strike back, derelicting the Walpole, and taking the Black Knight down to two masts, decimating her crew with boards in the process. The Nautilus has broken through on the right and looks to provide support for the failing Bombardier. La Voz de Dios muscles her way into the action, planting herself between the Black Knight and Fort Royal. The Black Knight, meanwhile, has lost her bow mast, leaving only one standing. The Nautilus was sunk by a combination of both La Resolutions. A house rule allowed for both to be in play at once, and her sinking allowed for the ships to get a good bead on the Bombardier, sinking her as well. The Spanish main Resolution comes around the gap and into the void left by the Bombardier. Meanwhile, on the left, the Temple and Voz de Dios have battled each other to a stalemate of sorts. The Voz has one mast left, but is exposed to the land guns of the fort and colony, where the Temple has only one mast left, but is also on fire. The bow of the Spanish main Resolution can be seen, only possible because she captured the Black Knight. A keen eye will note that the colony has been destroyed at the hands of the Spanish, making all the effort of the English for naught. I put a yellow filter on the camera for these next few shots, just to see how it would look. The Americans assemble all of their combat ships and sail northward, with the fully repaired Venture taking point. The Cursed go about their business and gather resources and gold. In general, they have not committed to a combat of any kind in the game so far. However, they turn some heads as they put forth a Scorpion squad, with the Bloody Blade launched from their trading port, and the Chum Maker launched from Aguinvari Gakali. They did it! The French were able to clear away the Spanish fort on the portal, and can now get to their long-imprisoned crew. However, caution must be had as this portal island has not been explored since the UTs were placed, and dangerous items could still be found there. La Corse emerges from a whirlpool and attacks the captured Ville de Paris. The Americans and French are back at it! The Bao hides in the fog, and also makes way for English ships to pass through. The English were not happy that someone else had finished goods, so they sent the Caradoc through a whirlpool. She emerged within spitting distance of the new finished goods island, and using an extra was able to explore it for the English. At the end of their turn, Ramsgate was built, shutting down production of resources at the island, and infuriating the Spanish. A wider view of the battle around Fort Royal. The Grand Temple is menaced by the glorious treasure and the Serpiente. For safekeeping, the important named crew in the temple are removed and stationed at Fort Royal. The Tower Flotilla has been launched from the fort, and is in perfect position to blast away at La Resolution. The Muerte del Diablo, Custom 5 Master, and a hired Viking sink the Aberdeen Baron. The Spanish have loosed one of the most deadly weapons in their arsenal, El Acorazado Nuevo, who not only sports the ability of the original Acorazado, but is also immune to L-range cannons. You can make her out bearing down on the temple from the far side of Fort Royal. Now English, the Constitution had torn into the Spanish ranks to the south of Fort Royal, leaving ships derelict and damaged. Here, though, the Spanish have struck back. as La Resolution gives the massive warship a fire mast. English command is not worried, however, since the flags of Ramsgate are visible in the background. The Talon is set upon by La Resolution and is given a fire mast. Notice in the background Shaya Halud, who was brought in by the English along with its counterpart, Kadara. In the southwestern theater, the Tens repair as the Apollo guards them from harm. The French are still in it and have slowly accumulated bits of gold, but the continued English presence around their home island and hostility toward almost all nations means that they are living on borrowed time. The Accursado Nuevo was set upon by the Accursado. Chancellor Diaz cancels her immunity, but it cannot seem to buy the English a shot, as between 3 ships, the Nuevo does not lose a single mast. The Stevens sails past the French and attacks the Leicester. In the background, the Apollo makes to turn about and help her fleet mate. The English are more successful a second time around, and leave the Nuevo with 1 mast standing. Knowing the English proclivity for capturing, the Spanish immediately order the ship out of English waters. A wide shot of Fort Royal reveals the Nuevo was the only Spanish ship with a mast standing in the area. All others are derelict and about to be captured, derelict, or sunk. Meanwhile, back at the English home island, Carbon Charlie has finished his work on the Endeavour, and Abel Morgan comes aboard to await further crew. The resources were set to change, and with much fanfare, the last resource rolls were made, with the 3 coming up for value, and a fitting max duration of 12 rounds. This meant that spices would be the most valuable resource along with metals, while lumber and medicine were not as valuable. The English rejoiced over this, since they were the only faction with access to spices. A long shot of the ocean around the portal, the Celtic Fury makes her way south toward the French. In the background, the Rampage, Custom Mercenary 5, with cancelling built in, has been launched from Ramsgate, where the main battle between the English and Spanish has shifted to. The Constitution is reduced to fire masts, just short of Ramsgate, with the Americans finally able to get in on the war against the English. La Belle Étoile was captured by the Americans a while ago, and now repaired, the Americans send her through a whirlpool, coming out near the English trading port on the Spice Island. She docks and blockades the port, freezing all ships there. The Cursed launched the Bloody Sea, custom switchblade, built-in extra action, from their fort on the northern portal, making the English slightly nervous. The Spanish once again dip into the privateer factions, and hire the Grand Temple and Grand Dynasty as well as a support junk. Here they attack the English around the whirlpool near Ramsgate, reducing the interceptor to 1 mast. In the background, the Janissaries' blood has come through the whirlpool for the English, looking to support the vessels in the area. A wide shot of the north, the English have cleaned up the Spanish around Fort Royal, recapturing the Black Knight and repairing the temple. On the bottom of the frame, the Forge has hit an iceberg, and the Celtic Fury is looking to come east to assist against the Americans and remaining Spanish forces. A similar shot, but what's that at the French home island? Are those ships? Indeed they are. The French scrapped together enough gold to make their final launch, and put forth 2 custom 5-masts, one from Cadet Captain Mike Sett, and the other from El Cazadores. The Americans and French attack the English, sinking the captured Deliverance. But will this alliance last? The French still hate the Americans, and the Americans are at their weakest point ever in the game. The HMS Juggernaut, custom schooner, attacks the Soleil Royale, giving her a fire mast. With so much happening at the end of the game, I was not able to get pictures of everything that happened. Long story short, the English were able to sink the Grand Temple and save the Constitution, as well as lift the blockade on their trading ports. Spending a good deal of their saved-up gold, they went on a mostly privateer mega-launch. Grand Temple, Grand Wind, Grand Mountain, and Virtuous Wind, each with at least a captain, a helmsman, and some kind of specialist. The English weren't done, however, and put a good number of their own ships into the water. The Signet, HMS Gargantuan, HMS Pacificum, HMS Shetland, HMS Viceroy, HMS Lord Lenalton, HMS Resistance, HMS Sea Phoenix, HMS Templar, the St. James, HMS Victoria, Lusca, and the HMS Algiers. Each ship was equipped with a captain, helmsman, and some kind of specialist or equipment. They finally did it! The Pride had managed to sneak south and was on her return journey, but to get home she had to travel through English waters. As soon as she emerged from the whirlpool, the English jumped her and sunk her, thus eliminating the pirates. Their home island was reset to an unexplored wild island, which the English turned to, looking to establish complete hegemony over the entire Northern Ocean. However, it was not to be, as the round ended soon after, with the island still unexplored. With the end of the round, the game ended as well, and it was time to determine a winner. The winner was determined by the faction with the most ships still afloat at the end of gameplay. Without further ado, the winner of Century Economy 2017 is... coming in with 100 ships still afloat at the end of the game. Please give it up for the English! The English are declared winners of Century of Economy, and are the best faction until the game, hopefully, is played again next summer. The English steamrolled their path to victory, as not even all the other remaining factions combined had more ships or firepower to match the English. They pursued their goals militaristically, conquering most of the north, and single-handedly eliminated the pirates. The English were lucky to find valuable resources close by, and luckier still that those resources continued to be valuable throughout the game, a necessity to keep their war engine going. In the end, the superior firepower proved too much for the other factions to handle. Second place is awarded to the faction with the most gold, not counting the winning faction. If you haven't guessed it already, the Spanish earned second place, with 1,840 gold on their home island. The Spanish set up a sound gold system early, putting forth almost all of their gold bonus ships in our collection. They were aided by being able to put forth not one, but 2 cargo masters, giving a collective +2 cargo on all of their ships. This resulted in ships like the Joya del Sol having 10 cargo. The Spanish did not have a strong military presence, but their power of purse kept their closest neighbor, the Cursed, cowering in their corner of the ocean. However, when the English placed the storm terrain using the UT Lost, the Spanish decided enough was enough, and focused their existing combat ships and purpose-launched ships on fighting the English. This effort, however, was mostly in vain, as the English warships were too well equipped and the Spanish suffered heavy losses, including the capture of nearly all of their 5-mast capital ships. Despite these military losses, however, the Spanish are still able to retain the most gold of all the factions and earned second place. Third place goes to the faction with the most remaining ships, with the first and second place factions exempt from this selection. Coming in at third, it's the Cursed! With 31 ships still afloat at the end of the game, the Cursed claimed third place. The Cursed set a record for one of our games. They only lost 1 ship the entire game, and they lost it to storms, not combat. The Cursed were never shot at, nor did they do much shooting until the end, when they entered into an alliance with the English and attacked the Americans on their last turn. Coming in at fourth place, it's the Americans, who had the most gold left of the available nations. The Americans played a decent game, waged war successfully on the French, and single-handedly caused that nation's fall from the upper echelon of factions. However, success came with a cost, and that cost was much of the viable American warships. The Americans also lacked the finances and locations to make trading ports from which to launch ships. Their single fort of Thompson's Island was built on an island that was not suitable to launches at all, further complicating matters for them. Coming in at fifth place is the French, who finished the game with around 6 ships still floating. Their dreams of an ocean-wide trading empire were squashed when the Americans attacked, and the French never really recovered from that first war. They staged a late-game comeback, but were squished almost instantly by the English and Americans. Had the game gone on any longer, then they too would have been eliminated. The pirates finished last, as they were eliminated. The pirates had the misfortune to be near the English, who claimed much of the northern islands for themselves, forcing the pirates to seek trade partners to gather resources. However, it was not enough, as the English overran their home island and eventually saw to their destruction. That concludes Century of Economy 2017. I'm looking to play the game again next summer, but until then I will probably get a review series going, and maybe some other interesting things, so be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching!